Okay, try to imagine the most powerless person you can in the ancient world. You're probably picturing a slave, right? Someone born into bondage, literally owned by another person. Now, what if I told you that very person created one of history's most powerful philosophies about inner freedom? It sounds like a total paradox, but it's true. So let's dive into the incredible life and the game-changing teachings of Epictetus.
And boom, right out of the gate, he gives us the key. This one idea unlocks his entire way of thinking. Epictetus is telling us that the world itself doesn't hurt us. Our judgments about the world are what causes us pain. It's a radical shift, right? It takes all the power from external events and puts it right back inside our own minds. Tuck this quote away, because you're going to see it pop up in everything he taught.
So how on earth does a man in chains even start thinking about a philosophy of freedom? Well, his life story isn't just some interesting backstory, it's the very soil his ideas grew from. You have to understand where he came from to get what he was talking about.
I mean, his life was just one huge transformation after another. He was born a slave over in modern-day Turkey, and get this, he was owned by a top secretary to the infamous Emperor Nero. After he was eventually freed, he starts teaching philosophy in Rome, only to get kicked out, exiled by another emperor. So he sets up a new school in Greece, where thankfully his student Arian writes everything down, preserving his wisdom for all of us.
This story from his early life, it's almost unbelievable, but it captures his mindset perfectly. While his master is literally torturing him, twisting his leg, Epictetus doesn't scream or beg. He just calmly warns him, hey, that's going to break. And when it does, he doesn't cry out in agony. He just says, see, told you it would break. It's as if he was observing a fact of physics. His body was being broken, but his mind, his inner self, totally untouched, totally calm. This is his philosophy in action, long before he ever formally taught it.
So where does that kind of incredible composure come from? It comes directly from the central pillar of his philosophy, something we now call the dichotomy of control.
The key word here is prohairesis. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but it is absolutely crucial. It basically means our ability to choose, our faculty of judgment, our moral character. For Epictetus, everything else in the world might be subject to fate or other people, but our prohairesis, that's our inner fortress. It's the one thing that can never be conquered unless we ourselves surrender it.
So this is it. This is the distinction that changes everything. On one side, you have what's in our power, our opinions, our choices, what we decide to want and what we decide to avoid. That's pretty much the whole list. On the other side, well, everything else. Our bodies, our health, our money, what people think of us, the weather, you name it. The entire goal of Stoicism is to pour 100% of our energy into that first column and just learn to accept whatever happens in the second.
Epictetus had this brilliant metaphor to make it stick. He said to imagine a dog tied to a moving wagon. The wagon represents fate, and it is going to move forward no matter what. Now the dog has a choice. It can understand the wagon's direction and run along with it, making the journey easy. Or it can resist, fight, and dig its paws in, and just get painfully dragged along anyway. The choice isn't whether the wagon moves, but how we respond to its movement.
And that brings the question right back to us, doesn't it? Think about your own life, your own anxieties. How many of them come from trying to control things in that second column? Worrying about what someone else thinks of you, stressing about traffic, trying to guarantee a project's success. Epictetus would challenge us to see how much energy we're wasting. Okay, so this isn't just some abstract theory you think about once. Epictetus was a coach, and he laid out a practical, three-part training program for putting all this into practice every single day. So this whole system is built on three core disciplines. First, you've got the discipline of desire. This is about training your wants. You learn to only want what's truly in your control, like being a good person, and to be okay with whatever else happens. Second, there's the discipline of action. This is about how you interact with the world. We all have roles, right? As a parent, a friend, a coworker, the goal is to play those parts well for the good of everyone. And finally, the discipline of assent. This is the moment-to-moment mental work. When something happens, you practice seeing it for exactly what it is, just an event, without immediately slapping a label on it like, this is terrible, or this is the best thing ever.
Now, the story would be incredible enough if it ended there. But get this, the ideas that came from the mind of a slave were destined to land in the most powerful office in the entire world. Remember, Epictetus never wrote a single word down himself. It was his student, Arian, who basically took lecture notes. And these notes, this collection of teachings, somehow found their way into the hands of a young Roman aristocrat who was on a very different life path.
And here's the proof, in his own words.
The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, yes, that Marcus Aurelius, writes in his personal journal that his own teacher, Rusticus, was the one who introduced him to the works of Epictetus.
Just stop and think about that for a second. The mental framework developed by a man who was once someone else's property became the personal operating system for the guy who ruled the known world. It's one of the most stunning triumphs of an idea in all of history. The most powerless man imaginable, teaching the most powerful man imaginable how to live.
And this final metaphor from Epictetus just wraps it all up perfectly. Life is a play. The script is written by fate, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. You don't get to choose your role. You don't get to decide if you're a slave or an emperor. That's not your job.
Your job, our job, is simply to play the part we've been given to the absolute best of our ability. With character, with decency, with grace. That, right there, is where our true freedom lies. So the question Epictetus leaves for every single one of us is simple, but it's profound. You've been given your role on this stage. How are you going to choose to play it?